Hello, Sam here. Today we're going to talk about how to make a multilingual site and export it statically using xStatic. So here we see I've got a standard Umbraco starter kit site. I've changed it very slightly so we only have two pages. We have a home page and we have this page one of a content type. As we can see, I've edited the content in each of these items and you can see they are in English. We only have one language. So what we need to do to add a new language is to go to the settings section of Umbraco, click on languages, scroll down the language list box and choose the language that we want to do. We don't need to set this as a default language. We don't want this as a mandatory one. We're just going to keep this as simple as possible. Save that. We now have our second language installed and set up in Umbraco. However, what you'll see is you see that Italian is set up as an available language at the tree level, but when we click on an item, there is nowhere for us to choose Italian for that specific item. And that is because in Umbraco, you have to set up for each document type whether you want to be able to vary by culture. So here we've gone to the content page, we go to settings and we say vary by culture. Save that. We'll do it for the home page as well. These are the two types of pages that I've set up. You'll need to do it for every single document type you do. A little bit tedious, but that's just the way that it is. So we're back to the home page and now we can see we have an option to add an Italian version. However, you can see here that the field is marked as invariant. We can't change that on each language version that we have. So we need to change this in the document type again. So first place that I'm doing that is I have a composition on my content page. I click on the fields that I want to be able to vary by culture. Oh, sorry. So I need to go to the document type first, vary that by culture. I can then switch back to the fields. I can click on each field I want to be able to vary, select on that, press OK, do it for each field, submit that again, save that. So that is my composition item done. I also need to change the fields on the home page. So there we are. We have saved our items. The fields that we now want to set in different languages are now possible. So here is how we edit our content now that we have multiple languages set up for our two items in this very basic tree. We are currently in the English version, but we are going to create an Italian version of this page, which we now have done. So we need to set the thing. So ciao. And we will say hello to all our Italian friends in Italian so that they feel. So we say hello to our Italian friends. I will save and publish this item, and we have now got a home page that is up to date with our Italian content. We will do the same for our page one. We need to go up, create an Italian version. We can give it a different name. We can call it Pagina Uno in Italian. And we will give it the Italian title also. Let's save and publish that page. And we now have two versions of our website, one in English and one in Italian, both pages set up. We can use the cool split view in Umbraco to directly compare two versions of a page. This is particularly useful if you are a translator. So now it's time to tell Umbraco what URLs we want to map to which language versions. We can do this by clicking on our homepage and going to the culture and host names options. And what you'll be able to do here is you will set up a separate host name, or it doesn't have to be a host name as such, it just has to be a URL path for each language. So what we're doing here is we have an English version and an Italian version, /en for English, /it for Italian. We can save that. We now have that saved and published on our website. And what we can see if we go to our website now, we can see that it still loads as before, but we can now load Italian versions with our Italian content when we go to /it, navigate throughout the site using the links, staying on that IT path, and then we can also put in EN and we can see our English website. One very useful thing that you'll find on almost all multilingual sites is the ability to switch between the different languages as simple as clicking a link. So here I've just put in a little snippet of code which goes through the cultures that we have set up in Umbraco and adds a link to the version of that item in the different languages. So here we go. We can see both cultures are showing up. And if I click on the Italian version, we get swapped to the Italian version of the site with the Italian pages. And if we switch back to English, you can see it goes through. So a very simple piece of content, a very simple piece of code, just for us to be able to test how this website works when we export it statically. Now we need to configure xStatic to not only generate the site for the English language, but to also create one for the Italian version. Now this is still just one site in xStatic. We'll call it multi for our multi-language site. We'll set the homepage as we always do. This time we will pick both cultures that we want to show. You don't have to pick all your cultures, you can choose which ones you want. We have our media selected. We're going to export as the standard HTML website. We want to include the CSS and the scripts folders as they are what makes it look nice, and we're not going to be setting up a deployment target for this. We will just run this locally. So we can now generate our site. We can see that's generated nice and quick. You can see that it's generated for both cultures. And we will now look in the Umbraco data folder. Well, here we see we have some folders that have been created as a result of this. We'll run simple HTTP server so that we can view this website to see how it's. So we'll start a simple HTTP server to view this website, but what we can see is that we are not seeing the homepage. And this is because xStatic has put each language into its specific folder. Now what we need to do is we need to have an index.html at the root level in our default language, and this is what we'll show. And the way to do this is using actions. So what we'll do, we'll go to the actions page, we'll create a new action, and we will use the file copy action. In this file copy action, we will set the file path of the English homepage, and we will just copy that as the root index.html page. Save this action, go back to xStatic sites. We'll need to click on the edit brush, scroll down to the action section and select the one we just made. We can regenerate this. And as you can see now, we have an index.html page at the root level. We'll restart our HTTP server, make sure that gets picked up. And now if I refresh the page that we were looking at before, we now see the home page of our site. So here we go. We have a static HTML version of our Umbraco site, now with multi-language support. As you can see, the content switcher and the pages work in exactly the same way as they did when using Umbraco directly. Have a go. Hope all goes well. Good luck.